Good morning, everybody. We're starting week 4. We're getting really into the middle of this course, but this week you get to play a little bit, or at least have a little hands-on experience rather than purely academic experience as we've been having for the last few weeks. This week we have an interesting discussion board topic based on an old childhood game called Rock, Paper, Scissors. I'm sure all of you have played that at one time or another, maybe even as adults when you're trying to make difficult decisions. But this variation of the game asks that you throw a few names of court participants into a hat or a bowl, or just a metaphorical hat or bowl, and just pick out 2 of those names, 2 of those roles really, and then consider what the people who fulfill those roles actually do within the judicial system, how they exercise influence, how they perform their duties, how they interact with each other, and then write an initial post that compares the 2 roles that you've chosen, and you decide which one has more power. Power is the word that's used in the discussion board description. That's a loaded word. None of these people has much power over the others except the judge, who does have some actual power. But they do have the opportunity, or they're in a position to influence each other's work, or how effectively their work is performed. And that's really what you're doing in the discussion board, is comparing what kind of influence each might have over the other, and deciding which has more influence over the other's job. And then the second part of this learning module asks that you do an interview of someone who qualifies as a court personnel. Now, some of you have already communicated with me that you're having great difficulties in finding somebody to interview. I know that that's a problem. Especially in this day of security and confidentiality and the emphasis on keeping things sort of contained within a court system and not letting outsiders in. Some of you will have some problems finding people to interview. I would suggest that before you give up on that you try your best to find, branch out, go beyond your locality to another court system perhaps. Go away from the local courts into the state courts or into the federal courts, and see if you can find somebody who is willing to be interviewed. Could be a judge, could be a lawyer, could be a clerk, a deputy clerk, a court reporter, a bailiff, a sheriff's deputy who regularly appears in court, any number of people really, whose job it is to make regular court appearances. Could be a probation officer, it could be just about anyone who has extensive courtroom experience. And interview that person to determine how that person functions within the judicial system, what role that person plays. You will base your interview on a list of questions that you've prepared beforehand. And I am going to, in my written announcement this week, I'll include an example of a really good interview that a student did in a previous term, that I got her permission to use it as an example. So I'm going to include that with the announcement, so you have some idea of how to formulate the questions for your interview and the format that the written interview report should take. Now, my voice, as you can tell, is still pretty hoarse and raspy and not very pleasant to listen to, I'm sure. So I'm going to cut this video short. I will ask that you contact me as soon as possible if you're having difficulties with the interview. Some of you, as I said, have already done that, and I've responded to you to give you some suggestions. But do let me know before the last minute, if at all possible, if you're having problems and what problems you're having, and I'll do my best to help you. Have a good week, and I'll see you next week. Bye.